What's up, everybody? I'm John Salter, and welcome to Switch 2 News Uncut. Our top story tonight, Mario Kart 8 still topping the sales charts. Now, this is no surprise to me because the Switch 1 has a huge user base. Switch 2 just reached 2 million users, 2 million in sales. So we have a huge user base with all the backwards compatibility, so everybody can play that game, and it's just tried and true. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is tried and true. We have the expansion pack. If you look around, you can get a good deal on the game with expansion pack. And let's be honest, Mario Kart World is getting some pushback, and I don't think it's getting this amazing feedback like Nintendo thought it would. There's a lot of things about the game that people are still trying to wrap their brains around that they don't like compared to that old tried and true style. So I think a lot of people are going and buying that game after purchasing Mario Kart World to get the old school framework of that game with the pick your player, pick the cart, and go race and play online. And with that online user base, there's just a lot of reasons why you would want Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I can see why that is still selling great and why it would be outselling Mario Kart World since the release of the Switch 2. And this is not counting digital sales, so who knows, what the sales would be on digital for Mario Kart World as far as outselling Mario Kart 8. But that's not really what this is about. This is about Mario Kart 8 is still up in that top 7 to 4 range when you look at the sales. Amazing. It just shows what the staying power that the game has. And it's just a great game. And I think everybody should own it. So go out and buy it if you don't have it. Let's move on to our next story. If you like what you see here in Switch 2 News Uncut, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to be notified when new videos are released. Our next story, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade looks amazing on Switch 2. And this is great to hear. And my guess is they've had a dev kit long enough that they can get the game looking good and put the time in. A lot of these developers don't have the dev kits or got them a little later in the game. So that's why we're going to see a lot of ports, remakes, even newer games from third-party companies maybe having some performance issues. I don't think these are going to be anything where the game's going to suck. I just think in handheld mode, you're probably going to notice differences. But let's get back to Final Fantasy VII here. This is good. Final Fantasy VII is an amazing game. From what I'm hearing, it's locked 30 frames. Now, there are some complaints about that. We're hoping 60 frames, but locked 30 frames, guaranteed no drops. I can live with that, and I can live with, the better upgrades. And it just looks like this is a positive, outlook on newer games that are coming out. And as these developers get better at programming the Switch and get these dev kits, I think we'll see games looking great and at that 60 frames as well. And that's pretty much all we have for that story, but it's good to get some Final Fantasy stuff in the news. Our next story, 75% of Cyberpunk 2077 Switch 2 sales were physical. So there's some hype going around about this story because people are saying like, oh, they made a great decision, best decision to bring this out physical because look at all the sales. Well, if it was only released digital, I still feel they'd have the same amount of sales. But if you give people the choice of physical and digital, they're going to go physical. You're going to see a higher purchase of physical because there's still a lot of collectors out there. Now, the collector side of it, I got my own thoughts on that, and we'll get into that in a different video. But it just goes to show you that that market for physical games is there. But the problem is, do these companies or can these companies afford to put these physical games out and knock that price up to where everybody on the other side complains? Because gamers want to have their cake and eat it too. They want the physical games and they still want the game to be cheap. And it's just not going to happen in this day and age. Everything is going up in price. So regardless of what constitutes that physical game, just manufacturing, there's just a lot of pieces involved that are going to up the price of that game. And that's why you see a lot of physical or key cards. And again, we're going to get into key cards in a different video as well. So I believe that there's a little bit of mental gymnastics going on here to try to convince people or these companies that you better sell digital, when my personal opinion is if this game was only released in digital, they would have sold plenty of games and it wouldn't have made a big difference. And the money they saved not putting the money into the physical goes into play with the company profits as well. But I do think that these companies should make physical games for collectors, but hey, we can only we're at the mercy of the companies here. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see if there's enough pushback on these key cards to make a big difference. And that's going to do it for Switch 2 News Uncut. For this episode, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to be notified of videos released in the future, and I'll see you in the next video.